wondrous ones, divine humanity. So back again just to further some of the discussion, some of the perspectives that I was sharing a few days ago with my first kind of transmission on this Neptune and Aries, because obviously there's a lot unfolding and I've been contemplating and observing a lot of the things that are going on in the world, and wow, it is intense. It is intense. I mean, intense is an understatement. Intense is the law. We are here in this time to be alive during a great time of awakening, during a great time of transformation, of evolution of human consciousness. So we signed up for this intensity. So let's get comfortable. Let's dive in a little deeper. So it feels so relevant that these Epstein files were dropped right after this Neptune in Aries cycle. And I went into depth about the spiritual warrior in my initial talk. And that is really the initiation of Neptune and Aries, that we are, for the next 13 years of this cycle, we are going to be initiated into each of us becoming empowered spiritual warriors. And I won't dive deep into what that means. If you want to watch the first video, you can do so. It's on my YouTube channel. It's also here on Facebook as that live that I did earlier this week. But today what I want to highlight is a bit more about Neptune and what Neptune as a planet represents. So as I mentioned in that initial talk, Neptune is the planet of spirituality, but it's also the planet of illusion and disillusionment. And I know when I go into social media right now, and part of this is, there's so many things that we're being initiated into discerning, and that is the high octave of this initiation through Neptunes. It's like going through a hall of mirrors so that we can truly figure out how to be discerning, to see through illusions. And our capacity to be discerning individuals has been suppressed, has been severed from us for thousands of years, actually. So if you follow my deeper work, I consider myself a Gnostic. And the Gnostics were these mystical beings, mystical humans of old. It was not a religion. It was more like a title, like a yogi. And a Gnostic means someone who has basically empowered themselves to be their own channel for divine wisdom. And inherent in that, it means they are discerning themselves. And this is why in the ancient mystery schools, you would go through rigorous practices, spiritual practices, to learn how to wield the powers of your awareness, to become a master of your consciousness, to master your thoughts, to master your emotions, but also to master your ability to see things clearly. And this is something that's been blunted in all of us, atrophied. Our mystical ancestors were persecuted, were suppressed. The Gnostics themselves were destroyed, hunted down by the emergence of monolithic patriarchal religions that more set up a program of authoritarianism on the planet, of rigid law and order, where humans were basically suppressed in their ability to discern truth themselves through all manner of violence, through all manner of distorted belief, to the point where we were cut off from our abilities to discern. And that creates within us a neuroses, an anxiety. This is what Wilhelm Reich, the brilliant psychologist, called the emotional plague. Because your emotions are actually part of your primary intelligence. When you are really in touch with your emotions, you have a primary, instinctual, intuitive ability to discern truth. And if you look at the rise of patriarchal religions, they cut us off from our bodies. They sullied our nature itself, calling us originally sinful. So there was this betrayal from the get-go, as we were raised in these cultures, these societies, to not feel that we were empowered to know and discern truth. And then authority figures are thrusted upon us, and we look to them to give us truth. And you see this nowadays in the media. People will call things a conspiracy until it's promulgated or made official by the government, by the media. Epstein files is no different. I mean, a lot of us who have been researching this stuff, who have been seeing this stuff, we don't need, the American DOJ to publish these things on an official government justice website to tell us these things are true. We knew they were true. You just had to really be discerning and connect all the dots. The evidence is quite clear, it's quite there. But we're still in this kind of system where we wait for these so-called authorities to tell us what is true, what is right. And Neptune in Aries is really going to take us through this long 13-year cycle to really become empowered again, to stand for our own truths, to know what is true. And how do we do that? Well, I mentioned feelings, emotions. Emotions are things that we feel in our bodies. So we have to become embodied human beings. And it's beautiful to see in the wellness spiritual world, there's a lot of work now about somatic therapy, about embodiment. You know, in my whole notion of what I call the wounds of the West, because I've been tracking, you know, the wounds of Western civilization. One of the big epidemics is that we become a disembodied culture. We become cut off from the feelings of our bodies. And so we have all this backed up emotion, this suppressed emotion that tortures us on an inner world. And this is what Wilhelm Reich called the emotional plague. When feelings aren't allowed to flow, they become stagnant in the body, they create rigidity, they create tension, what he called character armoring. And then we are so armored that we can't be penetrated by, you know, cosmic wisdom that's flowing in and out of us at all times. So this is really going to be part of the initiation. So how do we become more discerning? Well, we want to become more grounded in our bodies. We want to do a lot of work to purify our bodies, whether it's diet, fasting, but also all the spiritual practices. Yoga, for example, the asanas are really about releasing blockages in our energy bodies so that we can have more capacity to hold the higher frequencies of spirituality, to evolve ourselves. And of course, you know, one of the best and most consistent ways that we can practice the powers of discernment is that inner work of meditation, contemplation, facing our shadows, facing our projections, our triggers, becoming just more observant and witnessing of ourselves. So that when we get triggered, when we see things in other people and we want to just project, oh, you're doing this to me, we can more or less go inside and say, well, what is happening within me that is true? So we need to be really devoted to this inner work. And we can actually project this out into the world, because what we're seeing right now is a bunch of politicians, a bunch of leaders who are compromised. And they're compromised on the level that they are clearly not doing this inner work. One beautiful teaching as well that the Gnostics brought forth is that morality is not something we have to codify through laws. Morality is something that spontaneously emerges in the moment when you're in touch with the guiding realm of your heart. Your heart always knows what is right and what is right or wrong. It has that power to discern. Clearly, when we see some of these emails and the evidence is coming forward, these are people who have lost complete connection with their spontaneous moral integrity. They've actually betrayed it time and time again, that they're probably so disembodied, so cut off from their inner truth that then they can perpetrate these psychopathic, inhumane, like horrendous things upon other human beings. So we need to also, you know, because there's a lot of people rightly saying that, you know, this Epstein release seems like designed, you know, and one of my friends beautifully put, you know, it's like a learned helplessness program. And I love that, because it is, it does feel like, oh, we're just being bombarded with all this horrific stuff. You know, all of our leaders are pedos, are Satan worshiping, and all this really hard stuff to process. And there's no justice. So of course our emotions get filled with rage, and then there's nowhere to go with them. We don't see any justice in the world, and it's frustrating. And in some ways it is designed to make us feel cynical, to make us feel defeated, to, just feel really low about, you know, the world. And so we want to push back on that, and how we push back on that is, I think each and every one of us has to consider in our lives, how can we actually be the change that we want to see in the world? How can we actually be righteous, beautiful, virtuous, marvelous leaders, the kind of leaders that could build a beautiful civilization based on peace, based on humanity, based on love for all creation, not just human beings, but all of the earth? Because, you know, as I chime away over and over, the biggest dilemma still on the planet is our broken relationship to the earth. That is the biggest problem. No matter what wars or conflicts are going on, if we don't have a planet that can sustain our life, that's just insane. Why would we continue doing all these other things? So we have to really see that this can be motivation. When we see all this tragic shadow being played out in the world, we should look upon ourselves and say, how can this motivate me to take this righteous rage, point it at my life, at anything that is blocking the true radiance of my being, the true unfoldment and evolution of my own virtue? How can I be motivated and see that the world is being steered by people who are compromised? So we need to be the people who are going to steer this world. Doesn't mean we have to be grandiose and start to, run for presidency or anything like that. But just look at your life. Start with your daily life. How can you be the president and the virtuous king, queen of your own life? Shore up all the gaps in your leadership and your integrity. This is the spiritual warrior. It's devoted to these disciplines. So use this. Use the horrifying things that we're seeing in the world. Don't fall into cynicism. See it as motivation. Like, we have to step up even further to be the true change that is so urgently needed in the world. The other thing I want to mention about Neptune is the planet of illusion and disillusion. So what we're seeing right now is literally the tip of the iceberg. And, they're positioning Epstein to be sort of like, one of the ways that shadow works is it likes to create monsters where we project all of our energy towards. So it's Epstein, it's Trump, it's Biden, it's Hitler, whoever it is. So Epstein's like, drawing all this ire towards him, and it's focusing it on him. And we have to be careful here because there are so many more layers to this. And I also want to caution those who are also jumping to conclusions like Epstein was Mossad, this goes back to Israel, the CIA, MI6, yada, yada, yada. Yes, all of those things are true, but on an even higher level, Epstein is not the problem. I think one of the big hints at what's going on in these emails is when you see references to Baal, when you see references to sort of like, almost like this weird satanic religious cult that some of these elites are part of. That is actually more of the problem. Because when people ask, well, who is really behind this? It's not obviously Epstein. It is something deeper. And this is where we get into terrain that a lot of us are unaware of. And I've done a lot of studies on the deep Gnostic materials. And what the Gnostics were trying to warn humanity about is that our true adversary on the planet is not another human being. It's actually interdimensional beings, which they call the archons. You see this reference in conspiracy theories as the reptilians and such like that. And I don't want to fearmonger. I don't want people to feel disempowered by this because actually we have so much power on a psychic level to resist and to overcome all manner of evil and adversity. But because we've lost access to the mystical stories, we're not properly grounded and rooted in awareness of what is happening in the background, what is happening on a deeper level. And again, this hooks into why spiritual work is so important, because if this is actually a psychic predation that's happening, so the elites are actually being psychically predated upon and distorted by these beings in this other realm, we need to realize that our spirituality then is the perfect antidote. It's the perfect defense, actually. Some of the Gnostic materials actually describe that meditation is a form of psychic self-defense because it's really, the battle is over your consciousness. And if you look at these people, they've clearly opened up the gates of their consciousness to possession. We are witnessing a whole echelon of leadership in the world who are possessed by the demonic. And that didn't happen by accident. That probably happened through ritual abuse, through ritual trauma. Who knows, all manner of other kind of ritual ceremonies that they're doing behind the scenes. But they're very specifically engaged in this activity of linking themselves to inhuman and very nefarious entities. So we want to do the work to actually support our connection to the angelic, to the divine. And this is why, again, Neptune in Aries is spiritual warrior. It's about the warrior being spiritualized. So it's like the warrior and the monk kind of coming together, the warrior and the Zen master coming together. And that's the work that we need to do. So I know a lot of us want to jump to conclusions. And of course, part of the Neptunian disillusionment program is that social media has sort of set up this situation where we're all platforms, and I know ironically I'm doing it here right now, and on these platforms everyone wants to like have the truth that no one else has. And so what happens is people jump into these convictions, they jump into these conclusions about things, and you'll see this with the Epstein files. Everyone's like, I've got the hot take, I've got the hot take. No, this is like all by design, blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, none of us has the whole truth of what is going on here. And Neptune in Aries is really trying to take that Aries energy that wants to like vault forward and make a decision and act. And it's saying, young Padawan, as Yoda would say in Empire Strikes Back, don't go and fight Darth Vader yet. You are not ready. There is still much for you to learn. And so we have to have faith as well in the process. And this is something that we've lost as well. You know, there's this grave cynicism and this great self-hatred that's been indoctrinated into us, that we don't trust life, that we don't trust the cosmic process. But there is a process at work here. What is going on with the Epstein files is just the beginning of a long process of awakening us to our powers of discernment. And there's so many more layers that will come. I do believe that as these files get more and more opened and processed, more and more people are going to realize, wait, this isn't about Epstein at all. This is about something deeper, something darker. And we need to shine a light on those things. And the other antidote that we need to do is we need to start rooting ourselves in the ancient wisdom of our ancestors, particularly the mythological stories about where we actually came from, what humanity actually is. And this is why I'm devoted to the Gnostic wisdom, the Gaia Sophia mythology. The story of the ancient goddess of Earth, Mother Earth, is one of the most profound, grounding stories that I've ever discovered. And it's given me a steadfast faith in life, because I know that there is this inherent goodness in the human soul that has been designed by this goddess. And I know, according to the prophecy, that she is in an awakening process right now, timed from cosmic upgrades that are coming into our planet. I know, and I can feel instinctually, and when I observe the world, I can see the reflection of these prophecies. I know that amidst all this darkness, there is this massive awakening happening in humanity. We are actually being primed. Never forget that, you know, in Chinese medicine, the food or the taste that builds the power of the heart is bitterness. And we are looking at a lot of bitter stuff in the world right now, but we need to face it, and we need to continue to understand it and realize there are many, 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 many more layers to it. Yes, of course, we want to jump out and we want to arrest Trump. We want to arrest all these perpetrators. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. And I'm sure most of you who know a thing or two about how the political world works, that you know that that is probably not going to happen. But what I do have faith in is that there is something mysterious and uncertain happening. And there's something beautiful about mystery, because it means there's more to the story. And I think as the years go on in this Neptune and Aries cycle, not to speak of all the other cycles that are going on right now with the 3 outer planets in astrology, all shifting signs pretty much at around the same time, like massive, almost unparalleled transformation happening on the planet. We need to not jump to so many conclusions. We need to allow this process to unfold and to have faith in it. And I believe all these layers that I've been speaking about the archons, about the whole spiritual, mystical, about demonic possession, all of these things will continue to be illuminated. And as they get illuminated, they're going to continue to point it back to our spiritual work, our work to craft our souls, to allow our souls, our virtuous, our essential essence is this virtuous being that wants to bring love, wisdom, humanity to the world. And this is the destiny of the age of Aquarius. This is where we are going. It may take lifetimes upon lifetimes, but this is the work that we want to continue building forward in our life, and then to pass the torch on to the next generation. So it is actually a powerful, empowering, and beautiful process that is occurring amidst all the horror that we're seeing and having to look at. So I just wanted to share some of that wisdom with you, because I know there's a lot going on social media right now. I'm sure we're seeing like so many different perspectives, and people want to like latch onto this absolute conclusion, but you know, whatever absolute conclusion you have is probably going to be different in a few days from now, because that's just what Neptune is doing. Until we finally come into that inner work and realize, I know what is true within myself. I don't need anything out in the world to really discern that for myself. I can discern for myself what is true and what is spiritual. This is the work we want to do. Dari says, if there is a next generation, well, there most definitely will be a next generation. If you look at history, we have been through so many tumultuous experiences. And we are resilient. We must trust that resiliency. We must also root ourselves in these prophecies. This is why I've been so deeply in study of the Nag Hammadi library, these texts that were found 2,000 years ago, probably some of the only remnants that we have at the mystery schools. And in these texts, there is a very curious episode where the goddess Gaia Sophia, who is said to be our creator, actually confronts the Lord Archon, that is said to be the false god of this world. And she basically says, you're going to have a couple thousand years of tyranny over humanity, but there will come a time where I am going to awaken them. And they will awaken so fast that in a span of a few generations, they will overcome this tyranny and hardly have any time to give to even remembering what happened before, because they will be so triumphant and so on the path of creating the new earth, which is another prophecy that we should also attune to. So there's a lot in the ancient texts and in the ancient wisdom that we can connect to. On that note, I want to share as well that I do have more upcoming materials if you want to deep into this ancient wisdom that I've been going so deep into and really connecting to. And this is the Nag Hammadi library, the Gnostic mystery schools, the Gaia Sophia mythology. These mythologies are very important because we live in a mythless world. They've destroyed the kind of meanings of our world, and we need to connect back to what our ancient ancestors knew. We need to recover and overcome the regression that has happened in these dark ages. And so I'm really honored that I'll be teaching with the Shift Network. If you don't know the Shift Network, they're a very imminent online portal for wisdom teachings and spiritual and wellness learning. And I will be offering a course very soon called Gaian Sound Healing, where I'll actually be integrating my awareness and my work in the world of sound healing, which I do feel is Aquarian medicine, the medicine of vibration, of really working on that vibrational essence of the soul. And I'm going to be weaving this in with all this ancient Gnostic wisdom on the mystery schools. This Saturday, I actually have a free workshop that I'm giving through the Shift Network, and you can find the links on my Facebook page for that. But that will be very, very deep. And there will be a 7-week course upcoming in March on all of that. So wishing you all the love, and don't lose hope. Keep the fire of hope burning, and trust this process, this initiation, and do your work, do the inner work. We are the ones we have been waiting for, and each of us is destined to be the heart-centered leader that this world needs. So please, in earnest, do that work, and don't get so cynical by all the bombardings of all this negativity that's coming out in the world right now. Use it as medicine to motivate yourself to continue to evolve your virtue. Sending you all so much love. I'll have more to share in the coming days.